A judge in a controversial Cambodian trial gets the boot, and China pays compensation in a murder acquittal case. Plus, as the year of the sheep begins, there's little joy to be found in Hong Kong. Happy Lunar New Year on this Thursday, February 19, 2015. This is the Asia Brief. The chief judge at a Phnom Penh municipal court, which was adjudicating a controversial murder case, has been replaced at the behest of the Cambodian Prime Minister, Hun Sen. Tung Sarat, a businessman and military general, was identified as the primary suspect this past November for the murder of Ung Meng Chu, a powerful business tycoon. Before the arrest, Tung Sarat fled, which prompted authorities to conduct a thorough search. During their investigation, they uncovered a large weapons cache at his parents' home. Subsequently, they were arrested, along with 5 bodyguards. But the judge in the case granted the parents bail. Upon their release, the pair plotted to vacate to Vietnam and were then rearrested. Cambodian Prime Minister Hun Sen was outraged that the parents had even been granted bail in the first place and called upon the court to take immediate action on the case at whatever the cost. They did, replacing the judge with his subordinate. Some feel Tung Sarat is being targeted for prosecution because of a falling out with Hun Sen and other senior members of the ruling Cambodian People's Party. The firing of the chief judge is likely to reinforce that belief, as some believe the case is politically motivated. A court in China's southern city of Fuzhou ordered the payment of 1.14 million yuan, or about $182,000, to Nian Bin, a former death row prisoner who was acquitted on charges of poisoning 2 children in July of 2006. Nian Bin was freed from death row this past August after serving 8 years and failing to win multiple appeals. Finally, a court in the Fujian province found there was insufficient evidence for his conviction. Nian Bin said he was tortured into confessing during police interrogations, a common account told by many in China, and actions denounced by human rights lawyers in China and global rights groups. China's ruling Communist Party has said it aims to prevent extorting confessions by torture and halt miscarriages of justice with a timely correction mechanism after a series of corruption investigations involving torture outraged the public. However, legal experts are unsure how much reform will actually take place. A flu outbreak and serious air pollution are putting dampening spirits on Hong Kong's Chinese New Year celebration. Thus far, 288 fatalities related to the flu have been reported, including at least 18 in the past day or so. Unfortunately, more are expected over the holiday weekend, and the city has placed more than 300 doctors on standby in public hospitals as a precautionary measure. Public outpatient clinics are also being equipped to handle an extra 1,000 cases a day, according to healthcare authorities. Due to the number of travelers at this time of year, a chief concern is the crowded buses and trains many will take, making the virus easier to transmit. Health officials are attempting to obtain additional vaccines for residents. Risk of infection does remain high, with the highest risk groups being the elderly aged 65 and above, as well as those with underlying conditions such as hypertension, diabetes, and lung disease. Making matters worse is the horrendous air pollution, with the Environmental Protection Department warning that on Monday it could reach serious levels. Today marks the beginning of the new Lunar New Year, embodied by the sheep on the Chinese zodiac. In a New Year's message to Hong Kong residents, the city's chief executive used the animal to suggest protesters simply follow Beijing's lead and be part of the herd. Last year was no easy ride for Hong Kong. Our society was rife with differences and conflicts. In the coming year, I hope that all people in Hong Kong will take inspiration from the sheep's character and pull together in an accommodating manner to work for Hong Kong's future. Hong Kong's chief executive C.Y. Leung is quoted as saying. Alan Leong, a legislator who participated in the demonstrations, didn't take too kindly to the chief executive's remarks, saying, quote, "Doesn't he know he's being called a wolf by Hong Kong people? So is it the wolf speaking, wanting Hong Kong people to behave like sheep, so as to be slaughtered and then eaten up by him? I think it's crazy, and he is sick." End quote. While the so-called umbrella movement has dispersed, resentment does linger. Coming up Friday morning at 12:01 a.m. is Asia News Weekly. This week,
I wish he hadn't used the rhetoric that he did, that of the greatest reforms of the post-war era. He's obviously not going to do that well.
You'll be able to hear the rest of that conversation, plus news, commentary, and analysis just after midnight. Keep up with news from the region by following Asia News Weekly on Facebook and Twitter. You can also send an email to the show with your questions, your comments, and your feedback. Just drop a line to podcast@asianewsweekly.net. If you enjoyed today's podcast, please share it with your friends. You can subscribe to this podcast at asianewsweekly.net or in your favorite podcast application like iTunes or Stitcher. Subscribing is free, and when you do, the next episode is delivered automatically to you. The Asia Brief returns on Monday. Thank you so much for listening today. For the Asia Brief, I'm Steve Miller.